Hey there, this is Laura with Potpourri of Life. How are you doing? I'm doing great. I had a great day. I got a lot of stuff done that, more housework, and I organized a few things to make things a little bit more efficient. And, but what was on my mind today as I was going through making sure that things were in order and stuff, because we're getting closer and closer to at least I'm looking forward to preserving the few vegetables that I grow in my garden. My garden has always been herbs and flowers and a few vegetables like tomatoes and peppers, and sometimes they did good, sometimes they didn't, but I didn't really worry too much because I always had access to farmers markets, and the grocery stores used to have real good produce coming in. And as of late, they're not. So that's been kind of discouraging. But we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on how I put my food away. But before I do, I process my food. And you choose your way of, are you going to make applesauce? Are you going to make apple pie filling? Are you going to make blueberry jam? Whatever it is that you're going to make. And so the first thing that you want to make sure is that all your jars are in good condition. I have a half pint here. Make sure there's no cracks. Make sure there's no dings, no nothing, so that your jar is safe to use. There's no guarantees in that because I've put things in the hot water bath canner and I've put things in the pressure canner and the jars break. It happens because that's life. But you want to make sure that's taken care of, and you want to make sure that your lids and rings are good. So here's a lid. I think you can see it pretty good. There's no indentation. I believe this one came out of a box of lids themselves. But sometimes you'll get, when you buy your jars, they'll have the indentation that you would normally get if you canned your food, because during the process of transportation to from manufacturing to the stores, the warehouse, the store, and then to you, the consumer, they're going through different temperature changes. And so what happens is they used to have these separated, and they don't anymore. So they put them right on the jars, screw on the lid and or the ring, and there they go. So they so what you want to do is make sure that these are good, and if they do come on your jar, I would highly recommend, and I do this whether they come from the box or not, because I don't know what's on these lids, and I'm playing with them too, is I just like the germs off. I'm just kind of funny that way, I guess. More so the ones that we get in the new boxes that have the lids on, because they've been going back and forth. So what I recommend doing, and they don't say you should have to do this anymore, but I do it. I just put these, I get some boiling water, put it in a bowl, and I let them stay in there, and so they stay hot. While that's going on, after I've washed my jars, I put the hot jars that were washed and rinsed, and I throw them in my oven at 170 degrees. That's the lowest temp my oven goes down to. And that seems to be very good. I don't have a dishwasher, although I have two hands. I can wash dishes. My husband has two hands. Our daughters used to help out a lot, so we had 3 dishwashers because my husband and I didn't have to do dishes because that was one of their chores. As they all went off to college and moved out, we got fewer and fewer dishwashers, so it's between my husband and I now, and we're doing great. It's just sometimes it's like, aren't you supposed to do the dishes? Until we got acclimated to who's doing them today and who's not, because we share that responsibility. And now the days he's home, we share it. When he's off to work, he just does his morning dishes, and because I'm cooking all day or I'm doing something, I might be washing dishes throughout the day. So you just want to make sure your jars are good, they're washed, they're sterile. And then while they're getting sterile, you can get your product that you're putting up prepared. You can do raw pack or you can do hot pack. It all depends on what you're making. Now, what I've been working on more recently is due to the cost of food, due to the cost of electricity, and a few things like that, I have decided to take the meat out of our freezer, the vegetables out of the freezer, the fruit. I'm little by little emptying the freezer out so that as we get new stuff, we can put it appropriately into the freezer. Or we may find that if it gets too expensive to use the freezers, we're just going to shut it down, although it probably wouldn't do it very well if I did that. That being said, so here I have a few things that I've taken out, and this is some chicken that I cooked up. And here's another jar of chicken that I cooked up. This one, it has seasonings in it, so if I'm really lazy one night and all I want to do is just say, what do we got? We got vegetables, just toss it all in. You could put some beans with this, you can put peas or whatever it is, and just put it all together. And if my older brother is watching, and he says, Laura, you don't like peas? Actually, I'm starting to eat peas more. I just don't like canned peas from the store. And so I'm eating more frozen peas. So you'll be proud of me, Dave. And yes, my husband's name is Dave, and my brother's name is Dave. I have another half-brother named Dave, and I have a father-in-law named David. So if I say David generally, it'll be my husband. But if my brother is watching this, I want him to know that I am eating peas now. But what I do is you can make pretty much anything if you do this. Now the reason that I'm doing this, I never thought that I would even consider canning meat. I just like, nah, that's too dangerous or whatever. And then as I did more research, I'm like, more and more, a lot of people can meat, and I thought, I'm just kind of surprised. And then I thought about it, it's like, but we buy canned tuna, we buy canned chicken, and we buy canned, you can buy that stuff. So instead of spending the money where a manufacturer is canning it, then I'm going to learn how to do it. And these were canned this past May, and so far the seals are doing really well, so I'm happy about that. So what I want to share with you is when you get your jars and they come out of the water bath, meat comes out of a pressure canner. I do not recommend water bathing your meat. You might get a seal, but it might not give you the same seal as a pressure canner. So I would be very leery of that. But like I said, I'm not the canning police. I'm just telling you what I know and from experience and what I've researched. So you do what you want to do. You do you, and I'll do me. So, but when you're done processing, my chicken goes for about 75 minutes. And then when they come out, I still leave the ring on when I take them out until everything is cooled. And so while everything's cooling, I'm in the other room doing something, or my husband and I might be watching a movie or just talking and stuff, and we start hearing I call it the canning song, because everything is pinging. And it's kind of a rewarding feeling to hear that sound, because you worked hard on this food and you want it to seal. So it's just kind of like, yes. So that being said, when everything is nice and cool, and I wouldn't say after you take it all out and once they're all done sealing, when you can even press it because it's not too hot, I still would leave the rings on the overnight. Whether you finish in the morning, afternoon, evening and stuff, I would just leave it on the overnight, and then take the rings off. Okay? You don't need those rings anymore. The purpose of this ring is to keep the lid on your jar. That's all its purpose is. It's not there for your viewing pleasure on your shelf, okay? It still will look nice on your shelf like this. And the nice thing about a good seal, this is chicken, this is heavy, that seal won't break. And I feel confident. Another way you can check a seal is if you pick it up like this. And that's putting pressure on the side too. So I don't necessarily recommend that, but just if you can pick it up a little bit, that's a pretty cool sign. Now, people have been using rings and leaving them on their jars. One of the negative of leaving the rings on there, it gives you a false sense of security that everything is hunky-dory, everything's sealed, nothing's going to go wrong. But in life, things do go wrong. So what could happen is there could be a loose seal here, and that does happen. But if you have this lid on here, you might not see it. Everything's fine. You think it's, even if it popped, you wouldn't notice it. But if it does, you'll either see botulism, it depends on when you finally get to the jar, and sometimes those seals will just come right off. All right, I don't have any here like that right now, so and I hope I never do. But if you do have that and you don't see the mold and the botulism and stuff, you can. That's kind of like a science project that you didn't plan on. Remember that loose lids that have been on the shelf with your food that you processed. With it, you don't need to smell botulism, and you don't need to see it. If your lid is loose, don't use it. And years ago, I did some corn. I canned some corn, and I used an old pressure canner, and I ended up getting rid of that one. I just threw it away because it didn't give the seal, and everything was fine. But later there was it just didn't look good. So I got rid of that corn. I felt bad because a pressure canner takes a lot more time than the water bath on some product. It depends on what you're canning, really. So I felt bad. I felt kind of defeated. But you know what? I wasn't going to feed it to my family because I love them too much. So out that went. But at least corn can go in the compost. So, win-win. Well, lose and then win, but it kind of equaled out in a sense. So that being said, now, okay, so we understand why we don't do this. Another thing is you can get, this one's a new one. I might have used it a few times, but you don't see any rust. You don't see any dings or dents. You don't see any food in here. And that's another thing is if you don't give it enough headspace, you could get food up through here. And if you don't clean that, then you can still get some rusting. But if you leave the rings on there, the moisture can stay in there depending on where you store your food. And so what you want to do is avoid that. Now I'm going to show you. Like, here's one. You can see the rust around it. This is one that I pulled out of a box that I had set aside in case the grandchildren wanted to do crafts or just play games. You could play toss a ring or something like that. I just made that up because I wasn't thinking of that until now. When you think about kids, you kind of try to think of something imaginative. But they can make ornaments. You paint them, use them for ornaments. If you're storing things in jars that are not food, craft, you could paint it and put it on the jar as a cover too. But so you want to take those rings off. The next thing is, how do you store them on a shelf? A lot of people are going to want to stock them because look at that, they stay. That's kind of cool. Nothing will knock that over unless it's a volcano or hurricane or whatever. But you don't want to do that, okay? And the reason is when you put pressure down in the middle, you see that part there? That's the part that's sucking down and bringing that rubber gasket to seal. So when you put it on there and let it sit there for a few weeks to a few months to a year or two, it puts pressure and you have the risk of those things coming unsealed. So my recommendation is not to do that. And I believe it's highly recommended by other sources too. And another thing is when you put food in the refrigerator, because when we gift our foods, we tend to give it with a ring. So when they put, and sometimes my husband won't know where my plastic lids are. I try to have plenty on hand, but if he can't, he'll put the jar of jam into the refrigerator, and that can also cause moisture buildup on the rings. So you want to make sure that, try to have these. And if you get a jam jar, if you have old peanut butter jars, those lids fit on top of it. Also, one thing that I really enjoy doing is I make my own spices. So what you do is you take like a half pint if you're making a chili spice or a taco spice and you want to have your own jar of it. If you've ever bought Parmesan cheese with the lid that pops up, those fit the candy jars. Check it out. I've been doing that for a number of years, and so I save them. And also kids who, I don't like glitter. Ever since my kids moved out, I was like, I do not like glitter, but you can use it for glittering. You can use it for other craft things too, the Parmesan cover with your candy jars. Now, one way to store your jars, if you've got space on your shelves to stack to, I wouldn't recommend stacking 3 on, but it really depends on what your storage is like. And so you do the best, you make your own decision, and if you have to store 3 on it, you do you. Like I said, I'm not the canning police, I'm not the lid police. All we can do is the best we can with what we have for our resources. So I'm going to put this forward. There we go. And I'm going to show you the one thing that you can do is you can put, without those rings on there, you can put the boxes right across on top of each other so that you can stack them that way. Now, that would be great if they're all tomatoes and stuff like that. This is just a mixture of stuff because I've been taking things out of the freezer. And yeah, I made some beef stew. I've got cooked turkey, some cooked chicken, and little stuff like that. So I'm kind of excited. And so that's one way that you can store it if you have the storage space with that kind of distance, and that would work. Other places that you can store is for those who are limited on space. Some people are known to store under their bed. Let me see. I mean, I store in a place where my husband made me a little pantry, so I don't have to store my food in my cupboards, which I'm really grateful for. But it's not a big pantry at all, but it's sufficient for the two of us. Now, when you're when you're shelving products from the grocery store, a lot of those cans stand on each other, and I don't believe that that's a problem to do that. But some people today, I haven't done this, but some people are buying their vegetables in case lot boxes, and I don't know if they get it at Walmart or Sam's Club and stuff like that. We don't have a membership to Sam's Club or BJ's at all. There's no Costco's around here or any of those other big box store type stuff. But at least those would be almost like these canning jars. You can stack them on like that. Plus you can see right in front what everything is. But we don't have that here. So if I buy canned goods from the grocery store, I just stack them on no more than 2 on top of each other. And how long do canned goods last? There's different viewpoints on it. I think I wouldn't store them more than a couple years. But if you're rotating your food and bringing forth the old to the front, which you should be doing, but things happen. You'll be tired, you'll be putting groceries away, or you'll be putting your canned goods away, especially when canning season really gets going. You're just putting things away. But so you may discover that, oh my gosh, I had a few jars back there. Try to do. I put the dates on of when I can it, and I write on the lid what it is. Okay. You should not reuse your lids. Can you? I think if we were in the situation we were last year and we needed lids, I would have reused them or attempted to with the same process that I do when the lids come in from the manufacturer. They're already sitting on the jars. They're indented. I wouldn't do it more than a second time. because what happens is we're softening that rubber so that it can seal, but there's no promise that it'll seal. And all lid companies will not guarantee it, except the reusable lids. And I'll share another video, so this one doesn't go too long. I'll share another video on that. I've used them a few times. I haven't used them a lot, so I want to get more experience in using them before I make any comment on them. So, but I have them and I started buying them last year because they're more expensive than the single-use lids, but they give you an option so you can reuse them. But like I said, if it was tight and I needed to use a lid a second time, I would just put those, because of the way I label my jars now, I can take alcohol and get rid of the writing and then put them in the boiling water and recan. Now, I'm not condoning it, so, report me if you need to. But, I'm basically telling you just it's a one-time use, except in an emergency. Now, what I do use the lids for in a second purpose is when I'm, sometimes I get dry goods, I haven't done this yet, but I know that if I decide to get a couple boxes of crackers for my husband or something, I would take them and I would put them in a quart jar and use those lids. And vacuum seals would be able to do that. But if you don't have a vacuum sealer, you can put oxygen absorbers in there, and that'll help. But if you're trying to store sugar, don't use oxygen absorbers. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I've been so busy. And then my husband came home. I was actually working on this when my husband came home, and it was like, I had to spend time with him. I missed him today, and yeah, he walked in and it's like, oh, he's here, yay. So I'm tired, so I apologize for yawning on you. But so when you're dry canning and you're using vacuum sealers, those work. You don't necessarily need an oxygen absorber if you get that seal. And another time I'm going to show you another way to vacuum seal with the vacuum sealer as well as another manual way. And it's easy enough. And so you can put things like crackers and oatmeal and stuff like that away in a jar, and you can reuse these lids. And that's the cool thing about it is you don't have to take these lids and put them into a craft pile for school children or ornaments, or if you're making stuff. Our first Christmas together, we used everything. I had canning lids. Some of our ornaments, we kept a few of them. We even used a sardine can once, and we made some ornaments. And this is bringing back some fun memories of my husband and I when we were first married. We were married in 42 years of 1980. I don't know why I forgot that. I think I'm tired. We're going to be married 42 years this coming Tuesday, so it's exciting. But I remember those years of, just no money. And you slowly build up. You buy a box of ornaments each year until you have more than enough. But anyways, that's what we've done with our canning lids from time to time. Now, I'm really tired, and one of the things I wanted to show you, and I will show a video making this. This is ghee. I don't know if you've gone to gourmet shops or the gourmet section in grocery stores. Ghee is an easy thing to make, and I'll be glad to show you how I make it. It's pretty close to what others make, and I'm looking in here, and it's like, this looks like it's not going to do anything, but it's actually a soft butter-like spread. And what you're doing is just changing the butter. And the nice thing about ghee, those of you, not everybody, I am dairy intolerant. I can't have much for milk. I've been able to have the ghee. I can do it. I can use butter when I'm cooking, like asparagus and stuff. I can use butter and a few things like that. But when it comes to putting it on pancakes or spreading it on toast or whatever, I can't have it because it just doesn't agree with my body. And I talked to a doctor once, and she said to me, she goes, the reason that is because of the breakdown of the processes is the reason that you can have it. And sometimes I can have certain cheeses. But my new favorite cheese is actually, they make some really wonderful goat cheese. It's expensive, so it's a treat when I get it. It's not something that I get every week. And so I do get that, and even my husband likes the goat cheese. It just seems to be a little bit milder. So one of the things I'll be sharing with you is how to make that. And the nice thing about ghee is I don't have to water bath it, and I don't have to pressure can it. I just make it, and because I keep the jars hot, the lids hot, and the butter turned ghee is really, really hot. It creates a nice seal. And these were done in March of this year. And the seal is still there. I don't see anything going on in here. And that's just something that I'm keeping an eye on because I'm curious as to how long it'll go. But it should be shelf stable for quite a while. So I'll be showing you how to make that. It's pretty simple. All you need to do this is butter, a cooking pan that doesn't burn, and I'll explain that to you when it's time for me to make my next batch. I'm in no hurry, but I want to make some more. So, and this was made with some Amish butter I picked up, and with that 2 pounds at $8, I made 7 half pints of ghee. And if you go shopping for ghee, I think the last time one of these jars would have cost you $8. So make it yourself, or if somebody wanted to buy one, I would charge them $8. So, but these are not flavored. You can flavor your ghee with garlic or whatever herbs you want. So I look forward to sharing that with you. It won't be, I don't think it'll be tomorrow. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. It's Sunday, and I've got some other things to get done, but I'm starting to ramble because I'm tired, and my husband is home, so I want to go spend time with him. I mean, nighttime is my time to spend with him. Today we didn't work together, so I'm off to spend time with him. He was away from the house today, so I hope that you have a very pleasant evening. I hope your day today was enjoyable. I hope that tomorrow is a blessing for each of you, and that you're staying positive. Don't let the naysayers, don't let the doomsdayers or anything like that get you down. Stay positive, and maybe we can all get through this. So have a great night. Get enough rest, and God bless.